Hazel and Cricket just had their first barn hunt trial, and we walked away with 4 non-qualifying scores, or NQs. Both dogs ran Instinct and Novice A, and yep, none of the runs qualified. And honestly, this weekend was still one of the most helpful learning experiences we've had so far. And there is one more detail that's kind of important. I actually wasn't there. I had a family emergency, so a friend handled both of them in the trial. Would they have done better with me? Maybe, but that's not really the point. Because whether it's your first trial, a new sport, a new handler, or just a new environment, this is what a first-time run can actually look like. So in this video, I'm breaking down what happened, what went wrong in each run, and what we're working on before we try again. So if you're not familiar with barn hunt, it's a scent-based sport where dogs search for rats that are safely housed in aerated tubes and hidden in a course made of straw bales. At the entry level, there are 2 classes, Instinct and Novice A. Instinct is pretty straightforward. The dog has to find a rat tube when presented with a choice between 3 tubes, 1 rat, 1 litter, and 1 empty, all placed out in the open in the trial space. Novice A features 3 tubes hidden underneath or on top of the hay bales. For Instinct, only the rat identification is required to pass. Novice A is a step up. Your dog has to perform a successful climb, which means putting all 4 feet on a designated bale, and do a tunnel in addition to locating the correct rat tube. This was Hazel and Cricket's first time ever trialing in barn hunt. We've done some practice, but nothing quite like a real trial environment. And like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't there. I had a family emergency, so a friend handled both of them all weekend. Which definitely adds a layer because barn hunt is a team sport. A lot of it is the handler reading the dog and the dog understanding the handler. So because I couldn't be there, going into it really became less about results and more about seeing how they would handle the new environment, the pressure, and something totally new. Okay, so let's talk about what actually happened, starting with Hazel. One big thing was that she alerted on the litter tube. So in Instinct, you'll have real rat tubes, empty tubes, and a litter tube, which smells like rats but doesn't actually have one inside. And for a dog that's still learning, that can be really confusing. So she thought she was right, but it wasn't the correct call. And honestly, that's really a normal beginner's mistake. The other thing we learned Hazel has to work on is that she has a lot of enthusiasm, which is great for our other sports like dock diving and fast cat. But in barn hunt, control matters just as much as drive. So one thing we need to work on with Hazel is that she doesn't rough the rats. Roughing the rats basically means being too intense with the tubes, too much pawing, digging, getting too overexcited with them. You can see her punt it here. Luckily, this was a litter tube that she ID'd on, which is why she NQ'd. And even though the rats are safely protected, that kind of interaction can get her NQ'd in future trials. And then there's Cricket. Cricket's challenge was almost the opposite. She wasn't wrong so much as unclear. She doesn't have a super strong, obvious alert yet, which makes it hard for a handler, especially someone who isn't me, to confidently call it. And instead of committing to the search, she would also just kind of wander, check in, sniff around, and yes, occasionally try to get attention for being cute, which is very on brand, completely on brand for Cricket. So between Hazel being a little too intense and Cricket being a little unclear in her alert, we ended up with 4 NQs across the weekend. But a lot of that is what you might expect from dogs at this stage. So even though the results weren't what we hoped for, we actually learned a lot from this weekend. The biggest is how different a trial environment is from practice. New place, new smells, different people, time pressure, all of that adds up, and things that feel solid at home in practice don't always translate right away. And then there's the handler piece. Barn hunt really is a team sport. Reading your dog, trusting your dog, timing your calls, all of that matters. So having someone new handling them showed me pretty clearly where our communication still needs work. And none of this is bad, it just tells me exactly what we need to focus on next. And this is exactly why I think it's so important to just try things, even if you're not sure how it's going to go. Because you can train and practice all you want, but until you actually step into a trial environment, you don't really know what you have yet. And yeah, sometimes that looks like 4 NQs in one weekend, but it also looks like progress, information, and a starting point. So we'll definitely be back. We have some things to work on, but that's the fun of it. So if you've been thinking about trying a dog sport, whether it's barn hunt or something else, this is your sign to go for it. It doesn't have to be perfect to be worth doing. And if you're already doing dog sports, I'd love to hear what your first trial was like. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to share it with someone who's thinking about getting started. And we'll see you in the next video, hopefully with a little less chaos and more qualifying scores, but no promises.